Hi, I'm Trang Pham Nguyen.
And I'm Maria Hill. And today we're going to be diving into some really spooky Reddit topics that people have posted on there. And we're going to be kind of going through and dissecting and kind of dialoguing about what we're seeing and sharing our perspectives with you.
And before we start, don't forget to like and click that subscribe button down there. And also make sure to sign up for our newsletter, which will include in the link down below. We'll be letting you know when we are starting our membership program, which is kind of like our Patreon. And when you join, you'll get a chance to personally talk to us and ask us about your stories and explore the metaphysical and spiritual world with like-minded people in our community. All right, let's get started. All right, ask Reddit, what is a supernatural event that happened in your life that just cannot be explained? So this person writes, one night I had a dream about my grandpa who had died almost 20 years prior. We were in his home and he kept telling me, we need to clean the house. We need to get the house ready. When I asked him why, he just said, she's coming home. My grandma, his wife of 50 years, died the next day.
Dang. That must have been a story to tell the family, because sometimes with these, when there's a death coming, several family members will kind of have these individual like experiences. Could be a premonition, could be a visitation, and then later on they kind of will be like, oh, you saw it too. And so I'm kind of curious if this person was the only one in their family that had this experience, or if others also had their own.
How do you know where, some people say, oh, it was a nightmare, and it legit was just a nightmare because it's like a subconscious fear they might have or something like that, versus like, oh, wow, yeah, no, that was a premonition.
Yeah, so the dreams that are visitations, let's say, and it could be like they're visiting and being involved in a premonition, let's say a family member could do both, is more, it's kind of clear, it's very memorable, it kind of stays with you for forever, for a long time. It doesn't fade as easily as like a regular dream would necessarily. And it's very clear a lot of times of what's happening in it. And it may be symbolic still, but it's not as like disjointed as like a regular dream might be, where it's like 1 minute you're here and the next minute it's all garbled and you're there. They're usually there, very purposeful. Sometimes it could have a little bit of noise in them, but a lot of times they're a little more clear than a normal dream.
These people are so hilarious. Someone said, LOL, damn, he knew he was going to get a talking to about how dirty the house was. Harold, you had 20 goddamn years to clean the house. God, people are so hilarious online.
That's pretty good.
A family friend of ours, Gary, was terminally ill with cancer. He was a father figure to me and one of the few adult males from my previous life. I'm a recovering alcoholic that fully understood me. A friend and myself were in Utah and found a hostel to sleep in for the night. I had a dream about Gary. He looked amazing, completely healthy and backlit, and was wearing a multicolored sweater. He looked at me with concern in his eyes, pointed backwards, and said, I'm not doing too good. I woke up a bit shaken because it felt so real, all caps. I told my girlfriend about the dream and she asked if I needed to call my mom to see how he was doing. I told her that it wasn't necessary because I knew they would call for me if Gary passed. That way we drove from Utah to Colorado and stayed in another hotel. About 5 a.m. I woke up and my phone was ringing. I could see it was my mom and I already knew she was going to tell me. She broke the news that Gary had passed and I basically explained to her that Gary came and told me goodbye. That picture that his wife picked for his obituary was Gary in that multicolored sweater he was wearing when he came to me in my dream. So I think this one is like, there's a lot of stories here that talk about dreams, but is there like a way where like our body or spirit like connects, or like astral planing, or that we visit people?
Yeah. You don't have to be dead for your astral body, or even an aspect of yourself to go visit someone else. It actually happens more than we realize, because at our core, we're multi-dimensional energetic beings in a temporary, physical vessel, you could say. And so, sometimes when we're sleeping, our consciousness goes out and explores other dimensions, visits people. And so, and also we're multi-dimensional, meaning like, there's time is not linear as we know it here as it is in other dimensions. And so we can see other aspects of ourselves could be across time and space and could come and visit us, let's say, before they have actually died in our time, let's say. It can get really trippy, but on a fundamental level, think of it like we have a lot of aspects of ourselves. You don't have to be dead to go visit someone in spirit, even while you're alive. And this is something that I've heard happen quite a bit. And as far as the sweater thing, clearly this person wanted to present themselves in a very recognizable piece of clothing so that they would really give them a wink, like it's really me. And it's not a coincidence. They often do come in something that can either they're wearing it or the way they're talking, or they'll say it like a key phrase to you just to kind of get your attention and make you realize that it's really them visiting.
Working as night security for a small office at a sanitation plant, building was a single entrance and you had to check in at security station to get in or out. A worker shows up and checks in saying he needs to take care of a few things and grab some stuff. So I check his ID and flip a few lights for him and then go back about my business. Fast forward a few hours and my shift is about to end. I still haven't seen this guy come back. So I go patrol the building to find him and literally cannot find him anywhere. He's not in any of the areas I turned lights on for him. No other lights are on. He's not in any other rooms. I stop by security to see if we missed each other and he's trying to leave, but nobody is there. I do a second patrol and still no signs. At this point, I went to check cameras to see where he went, but he's not on a single camera except the one covering the entrance and security station. He turns down a hallway and never shows up on the next camera down the hall. At this point, I logged it as an incident and the GTFO, get the F out, right as the relief shift shows up. Next day, my boss calls me and says that worker had been on vacation out of state for several days and wouldn't return for several more. Nobody could offer any explanation to what happened.
Oh yeah, this is cool.
It's not even a dead person. It's like this person's like Bob's on vacation, but somehow he shows up still.
Bob is a workaholic, even in spirit. So basically, there's several things that could be happening here. And I actually really love this one. And I have listened to a lot of podcasts with true stories. And for some reason, there's a lot of night shift security guard stories. And that's like kind of a lot of people's worst fears, like being all alone in like a big empty building and no one else is there and you're all and you have to deal with the darkness and the quiet. So, I mean, yes, like, you know, if you were to be like a skeptic, you could say like, oh, it's probably like their mind playing tricks them, they're delirious, they're tired. But what I think happens is either one of these things. There's maybe some sort of time slip situation happening here where time got scrambled and it replayed either an older thing that happened in the past or something that was going to happen in the future. Maybe also a doppelganger situation. Sometimes people experience things where they swear they saw someone or themselves even someone looks exactly like them in their place, in their home, in their office or whatever. And they find out it wasn't them, but then they're like, but then how come I saw you? And that can also happen where potentially it's another type of being that is camouflaging itself as that person. But to me, this feels almost like a time distortion thing, a time slip, or potentially this person was astral projecting. Maybe they were, dreaming somewhere and they're like, oh, I miss being at work. I just really want to be busting my butt right now on no vacation. And they're like, woo, floated over in their astral body and kind of went through the motions. And perhaps there was a syncing up where the security guard is perceptive of this energy, not knowing that they're sensitive. And then, that person is kind of going through the motions. But I'm going to lean more towards like a time slip of some sort, like time got mushed up for a bit. And then it kind of faded out, and that's why it just kind of disappeared after a certain point on camera. Well, what do you think about that? I'm just thinking about Bob when he comes back to work, and the security guard's like, "Did you know? I don't know, but look at this camera footage," and he's gonna be like, "What?" All right, this person writes, "The only way I can explain this one is wishful thinking. My mom and dad were codependent and they liked it that way. They didn't want other people other than the kids. They were completely happy to be just wrapped up in each other. My dad died the day before his birthday in a hospice center. Afterwards, it was like he was still home. His touch lamp beside his recliner would go on by itself. The recliner would rock like someone was getting in it. And sometimes my mom or my sister would hear my dad saying, 'Honey, fix me a cold drink.' That was exactly how he'd ask my mom to fill up his massive mug with Sprite over ice. My mom died less than a year and a half later.
After my mom died, there was never another sign of either of them being there. They've been gone now for close to 14 years.
I mean, you hear about people who have like these epic love stories that are so uncommon. And, hearing that, I mean, it's almost like he came back for her to kind of let her know that he's still there and to wait for her. And then I would say he's still crossed over, I would think, but he just came back to kind of say like, she's not alone. And knowing probably when he crossed over, he saw she didn't have much longer in this world. And when she crossed over as well, then he didn't have the need to like do those little visitations for her, because now they're reunited. That's probably why they stopped, because that was the whole point of doing that, it seems. And people can have this very deep soul connection that goes beyond just an earthly marriage or relationship. It can be so deep that it spans lifetimes, and so maybe they had that kind of love. So it's really actually a really sweet story.
Now also I can see people watching in being like, oh, does that mean because he's still there and he's still like making these signals and stuff, does that mean he didn't cross over peacefully to the afterlife? Or like he didn't make it? Why is he still lingering around? Is he stuck?
No. This is a very common thing that crossed over spirits do. They come back after they crossed over, then they can kind of float around and visit their family and friends, and they'll give them little symbol signs. They'll make little paranormal things happen. Sometimes people mistake a family member from the other side visiting as like a haunting, as them being trapped, but they're just dropping in, and so hopefully this will show, that you don't have to have that much fear of your loved ones not making it over. They can still come back and visit you, mess with you a little bit.
And also, like, again, the person that wrote this said only the mom and the sister could hear. So for anyone that's like listening, can you explain like why maybe the person writing this couldn't hear or like hear the dad's spirit talking, whereas sometimes other people can, and I think sometimes people who don't know the saying, like, why am I not gifted, or did my dad not love me as much? Is that why I can't hear?
No. So it could be a few things. So a lot of people ask me this question, especially when they're in their grief process and they're just like, oh my gosh, like, why am I not getting a sign? Am I doing something wrong? Do they not love me? Did they not make it on the other side? Am I just a big dope? And the answer is really that everyone has a different range of perception, and abilities can be in a family without anyone even really realizing that they have abilities. It's just this passive thing that, we just have a good intuition. We just know things. And people might pass it off as that. But then some siblings, just like every other genetic trait, may get it, and other siblings may have less of it or may not really have as much perception. But what I find is that it is quite genetic. I mean, there must be some sort of gene or thing that hasn't been discovered yet, because it runs in families, but not every single child will get it necessarily. Sometimes they do. Sometimes everyone gets it. So they may have just been a little bit more perceptive to that energy. It also could be that just during the time where he visited, they happened to be there and there was like a resonance, where they picked up on it. So there's a few different reasons, but if you feel like you're someone who struggles to actually like perceive these things, you can totally learn how to be more perceptive. It just takes time and awareness and setting the intention that that's what you want to do. But most people push this stuff away. So if they're pushing it away, even subconsciously, they may not, see it or hear it, because in their head, they're saying, I'm afraid of this stuff. But their heart is like, oh, but am I going to get a visitation? So it's canceling each other out.
Yeah, and if you guys are interested in learning a little bit more about what psychic abilities you have, check out our website, thehappyhealingshop.com, and click on blog. We have so much information there, and we also have a free quiz, so you can see like, oh, these are subtle signs, and I didn't realize that they were gifts. And also we sell a course as well to those who are interested in wanting to learn to develop this even more. All right, next question. When I was a kid, about 10 to 12-ish years old, I was carrying a load of laundry upstairs home alone while mom was out doing errands. We have this weird carpet runner over our hardwood stairs that's only really attached to the top of the flight, but otherwise not fitted or secured to each individual stair. So naturally I step on an air bubble of carpet with my vision obscured by the laundry and fall backwards while bear hugging a bunch of blankets. I'm just visualizing like,
a cartoon.
And everything's like in slow-mo.
Yeah.
I specifically remember thinking, well, I guess I'm about to die, while almost airborne with just my left big toe on the carpet when I felt two hands, one on either side of my shoulder blades, give me a firm shove that launched me back up on the stair and diagonally across the stair rail. I assumed mom somehow silently came back early without announcing herself and turned around to thank her while still clinging to the railing, but no one was there. I scurried upstairs to put my things down while calling her name and walked the house afterwards to check if any doors were unlocked or if her car was there. I finally resorted to calling her cell, where she told me she was hitting up a few more stores. It still feels like there's a presence on that stairwell, like someone's watching, but in a protective way rather than sinisterly. And then I guess a lot of people commented, and this person wrote, "Thanks for all the awards. I'll have to holler at the stairway ghost and let it know the internet loves it."
That's so cute.
Yeah, so this one is like, who could it be? Or like, but this is, I could just see people being like, is it haunted? Is it a loved one? Like, is it actually real that some force can really do that?
Yeah, so there's a few different things. I mean, there's a lot of different things, but we'll just keep it to a few here. So the more I've done this kind of work, mediumship, and psychic readings, the more I've learned about our times to go, and when it's not our time to go, when it is our time, and when it is our time to go, there's different things that happen. When it's our time to go, like that person would have just completely biffed and not come back. They would have died, but it wasn't yet. So sometimes in this case, there can be an angel that is assigned to the person, or someone, or a guide, or could be an ancestor or something that is that is generally protective, but is helps out in these situations. I find a lot of times like angelic type presences can kind of rewind time and like open up portals, and like so sometimes people will be like, I just had a car accident, but then a second later I was back in my car and I wasn't in the accident. Like that kind of anomaly stuff I find is more angel doings. The angels are manipulating time and space. But yeah, no, it could be also a spirit that's just very friendly and knew it wasn't their time to, because they could see those things. Could be even something like an ancestor that's always just kind of sticking around, and maybe they're double checking to make sure they don't fall down that staircase again. But if it's your time, like you cannot, it's just everything's going to line up and it seems unfair. But when it's not your time, you're going to see the craziest stuff. Like they're going to move, as they say, hell and high water to literally like stop time and stuff so that you don't die. So I don't know, food for thought. I know that's a little bit controversial, but that's just as my perspective as a medium.
Yeah, it reminds me of like those people that get in like terrible accidents. You see the car is like totaled, almost smushed, and the person came out with a couple of bruises, and you're like, what? You shouldn't have survived that. I'm sure like probably a lot of paramedics and stuff see that. Okay, and that does it for today's video. Don't forget again to like and subscribe down below so you know when the next video is going to come out. And don't forget to join our newsletter, where we'll notify you when our Patreon or membership program is launched. That way you get a chance to chit chat with psychic medium Maria Hill and ask away all the questions that you like to.
Don't forget to keep a lookout for the next parts of these series, and we'll see you then.